Um, so now from today onwards, let's turn our attention to the reading section of the test. On the day of the IELTS test, reading is the last test on that day. I guess you know that the test begins with writing first, listening second, and reading third. Uh, During the listening test, they give you an answer sheet. The same answer sheet is used for reading as well. So you will see a paper. On one side you write listening answers, on the other side you write reading answers, the same paper. So once the listening test is over, they take away the question paper from listening and they'll give you new question paper for reading. And it is a 1 hour test. Within that 1 hour, you have to solve 40 questions. The answers of those questions are given in the passage somewhere. You have to search, find, and write the answer. Now, it may sound easy, but the text is not very simple to understand. You have to interpret the meaning of the text to find the answer. It is never directly given. That makes it difficult. Anyway, these 40 questions come from three different passages. You will see long passages. Some passages are short, I guess 500 words. Some are longer, up to 800 words. So, on an A4 size paper, it could be 1.5 pages or 2 pages long. And by reading the passage, you have to find out the answers. The difficulty of the passage will increase as you move from 1 to 2 to 3. That means the third passage is the most difficult passage, and the first is the easiest one. By difficult and easy, I mean the language complexity and whatever they are trying to tell you from the passage. The topic itself, maybe you are familiar with the topic, so it may be easy for you to understand. But for a general audience, the text is slightly more complicated with more difficult vocabulary, more complex grammatical structures as you move further along. So questions 1, 2, 3, 4 are very easy. Questions 39, 40 are very difficult. The difficulty increases. And the topic of these passages could be anything. Anything under the sun can be given as a topic in the exam. It could be related to history or geography or politics or environment or technology or just anything that you can think of. Now, sometimes what makes it easy is you may be a science student and you may get a topic about science and it may be easy for you to understand. But sometimes you may be a science student, but the topic may be about economics or accounting, which may be difficult. But the test is not whether you understand the topic according to your own background, but for a general people. And any educated person, if they have good enough English knowledge, should understand this kind of questions. Sorry, this kind of texts. And the questions that we get, like I said, 40 questions, they come of various types. Some are fill in the blanks questions, some are multiple choice, some are matching, some are true false. In total, there are 10 types of questions, 10 distinct types, and we will learn about those 10 types one by one. So, what I like to do in this class, so how I teach is for the first few days, I mean, today, tomorrow, maybe the day after tomorrow as well, we will focus on some theories. How to read a text, what does reading mean, what to keep in mind when we are reading something. Because one thing sometimes I suspect that in our school and college, teachers teach us, but they only teach us according to what questions we get in the exam. They don't make us read the text ourselves. They give us the summary of the text and they give us notes based on which we study. But in the IELTS test, there is no one to explain the text for you. You have to read and understand by yourself. So, which may be a difficult thing for many people, or maybe easy if you have a reading habit. So, we'll focus on the theory, how to approach a text, what should we do when we read. And once we figure those things out, then we will look at the 10 question types one by one. So, we will take 10 days. Each day, we will focus on a question type and learn about all of them. And after those 13 days, maybe we will get somewhere. In the beginning, for the first few days, I don't want you to worry too much about the question. Some people approach the practice in a very wrong way. The thing is, you are not taking the IELTS test today. So I guess in 1 hour, solving all the 40 questions will be very difficult today. But we are practicing right now. We are not taking the test right now. So in practice, don't rush. Try to understand. And don't worry, like, will I be able to do this in 1 hour or not? Let's worry about that later on. So once we figure out the theory and once we learn about the 10 question types, then let's worry about whether we can do it on time or not. Just that. So today is the first day. What I like to do is let's pick a passage from this book and let's see what kind of passage we get in the exam. Let's read it to see how difficult is it, how interesting is it, because interest is also something that we have to pay towards our text. If you think reading is boring, then you will never succeed in the IELTS test. You have to find that content very interesting to you. It may not be interesting, but the knowledge itself, you are gaining some knowledge from it, and this helps you a lot. The knowledge that you get from reading the IELTS texts, the text, like I said earlier, are based on something that is happening around the world. They are taken from magazines or newspapers or books. So they contain some factual information. These are not stories or poems. These are real essays written about something that's happening, that's going on around the world. So you learn something from that. And this knowledge that you gain, you can apply that to your writing or your speaking test. In your speaking test, you may be asked different questions. Sometimes the thing that you remember while reading a text right now might be used in speaking as well. So try to apply that kind of approach. Let's see a question from our book and let's read it today. Just reading to see what reading is like. So as I'm turning the pages, so this one seems like a nice passage to begin with. Go to IELTS 16, page 16. IELTS 16, page 16. The title is Why We Need to Protect Polar Bears. Do you see it? Okay. Why we need to protect polar bears. Does it sound interesting? Just by reading the title, it seems like they are in danger of something. So we have to protect them. Polar bears. Now, I doubt if you have actually seen a polar bear, but on videos maybe you have seen polar bears. What do you know about them? Hmm. Not in Antarctica, but in Arctic. Arctic region is on the northern part of the world. Antarctica is the southern part of the world. They live in the northern part of the world, in the Arctic area. Actually, I learned that the word Arctic means polar bear, and Antarctic means anti-Arctic, means no polar bear. Polar bear are only found in one part of the world, that is the Arctic area. And if you have seen penguins, penguins are found in the Antarctic area. They don't live in the same place. So they live in snow at that place over ice. Polar bears. They are white in color. I guess you have seen that. Maybe they are of different colors, but on TV they only show white polar bears. And did you know that they are the largest land predators on the world? Predators mean animals which hunt other animals. Like elephant is large, but elephant is a herbivorous animal, a carnivorous animal which hunts another animal. Polar bear is the largest one in the on land. Now in water, maybe they are bigger sized blue whales and things like those, but they are the largest. Now, if you have you ever seen a bear in real life in Nepal? We only see small kinds of bears, not very big. The black bear in Nepal, we see black bear, but bears can be very very big. Like they can be 11 feet tall, I guess, very very big. Anyway, let's see. First of all, now before reading the text, who knows what the text is about? But we can just guess that they are in danger and we have to protect them. Why is the question? Why should we protect them? Let me read the text for you. While I am reading it, I want you to visualize what I am reading. Just imagine the situation. Let me begin. Polar bears are being increasingly threatened by the effects of climate change. Climate change, I guess due to climate change, when the polar ice melts, the habitat of polar bear would be lost, because if there is no ice, where will they stay? I guess that is what is affecting them. But the disappearance could have far reaching consequences. Far reaching means the effect of this is not limited to that area, it can go very far. So, if polar bears die, it is not only them who would suffer, other things will also suffer. So, what are they? They are uniquely adapted to the extreme conditions of the Arctic Circle, where temperatures can reach minus 40 degrees Celsius. Okay. One reason for this is that they have up to 11 centimeters of fat underneath their skin. So, how can they survive in such extreme cold? Because of fat under the skin. They have, now, imagine how big 11 centimeters is. It will be, I guess, 11 centimeters would be like this length, I guess. Very big, not this much fat, this much, I guess, 11, this much fat under the skin. Humans with comparative levels of adipose tissue would be considered obese and would be likely to suffer from diabetes and heart disease. So, if human beings had that much amount of fat in our body, it will be not good for our health. Obesity is the problem of being overweight, up to the point that overweight itself becomes a disease. It will be a disease for us, and we will also get heart disease and diabetes if that happens to us. Yet, the polar bear experiences no such consequences. So, this first paragraph is giving us a hint. Maybe we should protect polar bear to study this phenomenon. When human beings have fat in their body, they become sick, they get disease. But why doesn't the polar bear get disease due to fat? So, if we protect them, we can study this and maybe apply that to human beings as well. I guess let's read what the text actually says. A 2014 study by Siping Lu and colleagues sheds light on this mystery. They compared the genetic structure of polar bears with that of their closest relatives from a warmer climate, the brown bears. So they compared the DNA of polar bear and the brown bears. Like you told me earlier, black bears, brown bears. Do you know other kinds of bears? Just general knowledge. Do you know the panda? That is also a kind of bear. I also learned one more thing. Do you know? I have only found two so far. English language has words from other languages as well. Like the word, do you know the word, for an example, chai? That word is an Hindi word, but it is used in English as well. The word ghee, for an example, it is derived from Indian language, but in English also we say the same thing, ghee. Same thing from Nepali also. Two words have entered the English language. One is panda. The word panda is a uniquely Nepali word, but this word is used all over the world and in English particularly to recall to that animal, to refer to that animal. Same thing with Sherpa as well. The word Sherpa is a Nepali word, but this word is used in English. In English, a Sherpa means a guide. Just any guide is called a Sherpa. So in let's say in events, let's say there's a wedding ceremony or a conference, an event like that, the people who take you to your place to make you sit, those are also called Sherpas. So panda is a bear. Grizzly bear, if you have watched Hollywood movies, you have seen about grizzly bear. Anyway, a panda eat bamboo. They are not very agile. Do you know the strange thing about pandas is they are omnivorous, so they can eat whatever they like. They can eat animals as well, but they don't eat animals. They can, but they don't. They only like to eat bamboo, and bamboo has so less nutrients. Like it has nothing in that thing, so they have to chew bamboo all day and all night, and they don't get any energy from that as well. So if we don't protect the panda will die if you let it live by itself. And anyway, so they compared different kinds of bears, the polar bear with the brown bear, to see how they are different from each other, the genetic structure. This allowed them to determine the genes that have allowed polar bears to survive in one of the toughest environments on earth. So what is this gene that they have in their body? Lu and his colleagues found the polar bears had a gene known as APOB, which reduces levels of low density lipoproteins, LDLs, a form of bad cholesterol. So in their body, they have a gene which controls cholesterol. In humans, mutations of this gene are associated with increased risk of heart disease. So human beings might get heart disease, but polar bear can control cholesterol. Cholesterol leads to heart disease, I guess. So human beings can polar bears can control cholesterol by using this gene. So why should we protect polar bears? Maybe to study about this gene that polar bears have. Polar bears may therefore be an important study model to understand heart disease in humans. So far we are getting some medical reasons why human beings might want to protect polar bears for three or four reasons so far. One is to understand obesity, one is for heart disease, another is for diabetes. So we can know about these things by studying polar bear. Maybe let's see further detail about that. The genome of the polar bear may also provide the solution for another condition, one that particularly affects our older generation, osteoporosis. So there is a disease called osteoporosis, and this disease can be also understood by studying polar bears. So what is this disease? This is a disease where bones show reduced density, usually caused by insufficient exercise, reduced calcium intake, or food starvation. So it is a weakness of the bone. The bone becomes weak, that kind of disease. Bone tissue is constantly being remodeled, meaning that bone is added or removed depending on nutrient availability and the stress that the bone is under. I did not know that. I knew that muscles grow and muscles shrink. If you exercise, the muscles will grow. If you don't, the muscles will shrink. But bones can also do that. Bones also become dense and less dense depending on how much nutrients you are taking or how much exercise you are getting. So did you know that? I did not know that. Bones become big and small as well. Not big, I mean dense and thin. Let's see. Female polar bears, however, undergo extreme conditions during every pregnancy. Once autumn comes around, these females will dig maternity dens in the snow and will remain there throughout the winter, both before and after the birth of their cubs. I guess you knew that about hibernation. Many animals they go into hibernation during the winter season. Like you will not see snakes in the winter season because they hide under the ground. Similarly, polar bears also do that. They for 6 months they stay inside, and the female bear gives birth at that time inside the den. So for 6 months, the bear doesn't eat anything at all. So it must be very weak for this 6 months time without eating anything. This process results in about 6 months of fasting, where the female bears have to keep themselves and their cubs alive. Depleting means reducing their own calcium and calorie reserves. Despite this, their bones remain strong and dense. So this phenomenon, I thought the polar bear would be weak when they live in for 6 months without food, but they still are strong at that point. So if we study this mechanism, how can polar bears without eating any food still maintain healthy bones? Then we can apply that knowledge into human beings to cure osteoporosis. So let's understand this in more detail. Physiologists Ellen Lennox and Ellen Goodsep found an explanation for this paradox in 2008. Do you know what a paradox is? Paradox is when two incongruent things happen at the same time, it is called a paradox. For an example, uh, do you know when you heat something, it expands? Have you learned about that? Heating causes expansion. But do you know, you must have learned this in school, water, when you heat water from 0 to 4 degrees Celsius, it contracts. Remember that anomalous expansion of water? When you heat anything in the world, it expands. But water from 0 to 4 degrees Celsius, it contracts. After 4, again it starts expanding. But for those 4 degrees, it contracts. That is opposite things happening. It should expand, but it is contracting. That is what a paradox is. Something should happen, but doesn't happen, is the paradox. Two opposite things happening. So this thing, like I said earlier, if we don't eat anything, our body must be weak. But polar bears, even without eating anything, they are still strong. So how can that be? I mean, not only for a few hours, for 6 months. So imagine that. Let's see. They discovered that pregnant bears were able to increase the density of their bones before they started to build their dens. In addition, 6 months later, when they finally emerged from the den with their cubs, there was no evidence of significant loss of bone density. Hibernating brown bears do not have this capacity and must therefore resort to major bone reformation in the following spring. So this bone density remaining as it is only found in the polar bear, not in the brown bear. So somebody might say, let the polar bears die. Who cares? We have other kinds of bears, but other kinds of bears don't have that capacity. Only polar bears have that capacity. So we have to protect them. If they die out, then we will never find out why this is going on. If the mechanism of bone remodeling in polar bears can be understood, many bedridden humans and even astronauts could potentially benefit. So you can help bedridden means people who cannot wake up, like paralyzed people. Those people and even astronauts. When astronauts go into space, due to low gravity, the bone becomes weak. So when they come back, they are very weak. So we can help them by doing this. So far you can see many kinds of diseases can be cured by the help of polar bears. Let's see if there are other reasons as well. The medical benefits of the polar bear for humanity certainly have their importance in our conservation efforts, but these should not be the only factors taken into consideration. Means there are other factors as well, not only medical factors. What are these? We tend to want to protect animals we think are intelligent and possess emotions, such as elephants and primates. So when we think about conserving animals, we don't think of conserving, let's say, a mouse or conserving a frog. We think of conserving tigers and elephants, big animals. And primates means kinds of monkeys and things like these. We think only intelligent animals deserve protection. Like, have you ever thought like people talking about protecting, let's say, mosquitoes? We don't think of that. We only think of smart animals. So let's see if polar bears are smart. Bears, on the other hand, seem to be perceived as stupid and in many cases violent. Perceived means thought. When people think of bears, they think they are stupid animals. They are violent animals. So why to protect those kinds of animals? And yet, anecdotal evidence from the field challenges those assumptions. You know what anecdotal evidence means? Anecdotal. When it comes to evidence, evidence can be a scientific evidence. Scientific evidence means done with experiments in the lab and with keeping record of everything. But sometimes some things happen, but only one or two people see it. There is no record of it. Just somebody saw it happen somewhere. Means a small story that somebody is sharing. There is no proof of it, there is no video of it, but just somebody said it. That kind of evidence. From the field challenges those assumptions, suggesting, for example, that polar bears have good problem solving abilities. So this problem solving abilities hasn't been researched, hasn't been documented, but people have seen this happen. That's what anecdote means. A male bear called Gogo in Tennoji Zoo, Osaka, has even been observed making use of a tool to manipulate his environment. They can use tools to control the environment. Do you know that even dogs cannot do that? You cannot teach a dog to use a tool. Monkeys can do that. If you have seen, monkeys can even ride a bicycle. I have seen those kinds of things as well. Dogs can do it, but dogs have to be taught to do it. They cannot learn by themselves. Do you know the monkeys can do it easily? Uh, Chimpanzees, I have seen videos of them. They like to eat ants. So when they see an ant hole, they pick up a long blade of grass and they poke inside the hole, and then they make the ants come out and they eat the ant. They are so creative. You don't have to teach them how to do it. They will do it by themselves. So these polar bears, it is said here, they can also use tools in that way to help them. Let's see the example. The bear used a tree branch on multiple occasions to dislodge a piece of meat hung out of his reach. So he used a branch or a stick to get to a meat. So when you hang meat and the bear cannot jump that high, you can use a tool to pull that meat towards itself. So think how smart that animal must be. Problem solving ability has also been witnessed in wild polar bears, obvious, although not as obviously as with Gogo. A calculated move by a male bear involved running and jumping onto barrels in an attempt to get to a photographer standing on a platform 4 meters high. So they know that running and jumping will get you the momentum of jumping higher. Like if you jump from a standing position, you cannot jump very high. But if you run and jump, you can jump higher than that. So they can figure that out as well. If something is high, they can run and jump onto it to think that we'll get more distance in that way. Anyway, they're smart. Let's see. In other studies, such as one by Alice and Ames in 2008, polar bears showed deliberate and focused manipulation. Deliberate means consciously, not accidentally. They can do it with thinking. For example, Ames observed bears putting objects in piles and then knocking them over in what appeared to be a game. They can play games with themselves as well, like putting things on piles and then knocking them over. Can you think of that kind of game that we play? Arrange things and break them. That kind of game. Mm. All kinds of games, like even cricket, if you can think of it, we arrange the wickets and the attempt is to knock the wicket over. We are arranging and breaking it down. Or carom, we arrange the pieces and our intention is to break them. Or snooker, or bowling, we arrange the pins and then we have to knock them over with the ball. So even polar bears play games like those. They arrange and then they knock it over. The study demonstrates that bears are capable of agile, means quick, and thought out behaviors. These examples suggest bears have greater creativity and problem solving abilities than previously thought. So they are not stupid, they are smart animals. So maybe we should protect them for that reason as well. As for emotions, while the evidence is once again anecdotal, many bears have been seen to hit out at ice and snow, seemingly out of frustration, when they have just missed out on a kill. So they show that emotion of frustration as well. They hit on the ice just like we do. We hit on we hit on something when we are frustrated. Same thing that bears do as well. Moreover, polar bears can form unusual relationships with other species, including playing with the dogs used to pull sleds in the Arctic. They can play with dogs as well. Remarkably, one hand-raised polar bear called Iggy has formed a close relationship with her owner Mark Dumas. Hand-raised means pet animal, raised from the childhood, not childhood, what is it called, from small age, to the point where they even swim together. So you can think you can have a pet polar bear as well. I guess we should protect them for that reason. Would you like to have that? A pet polar bear? But I don't think you can raise a pet polar bear in this area of the world. You have to go and live in. So when you go to Canada, maybe get a pet polar bear, keep it in your home. Imagine walking your polar bear on the street. This is even more astonishing since polar bears are known to actively hunt humans in the wild. So see, they can be trained as well. If you don't train them, they will attack and kill you. But you can train them to become a polar pet animal. So we should protect for that reason as well. So let's see the conclusion. If climate change were to lead to their extinction, this would mean not only the loss of potential breakthroughs in human medicine, breakthroughs means discoveries, but more importantly, the disappearance of an intelligent, majestic animal. So all of these reasons are there. I guess they gave us 2 or 3 reasons. One is the medical reason. The second is that they are smart animals. And the third is they are emotional animals as well. So for these reasons, we have to protect them. And if they die out, we will lose all of these. But polar bears. I guess you know other animals which have become extinct. Have you heard of the dodo bird? About 200 years ago, they used to be alive, 2 or 300 years ago. But they became extinct because of hunting by human beings. And many are on the verge of extinction. Like in Nepal, we hear about one-horned rhino or the snow leopard or the red panda. We hear things like this. So if they become extinct, we will lose many things according to the text. So I hope you understood it. It is not that difficult in my opinion. The only problem is now in the class I was reading it for you. I was telling you different things about it. which I don't think I should have done. You understood by yourself as well. But we don't have this much time in the exam. We spend around 35 minutes reading this text. But in the exam, we have to solve this all, read and also solve the question in 20 minutes time. It is more difficult. But anyway, since we have read it, I would like you to look at these questions here. Do you see true, false, not given questions there? And at the back, you will see fill in the blanks question as well. So just because we read the text, I want you to try these questions to see if you can figure out the answer. Don't worry that I'm teaching you how to solve it. I'm not doing that just to show you what kinds of questions you get. So try them, take your time. Ask me if it is difficult to understand.